that it also does with the players. We try and guard against this. We haven't spoken about Wolves all week, but you find in your unguarded moments that they will come back into focus, so to speak. But we're just hopeful that the players can forget about it this afternoon and get on with the game.
At the start of the game, there was little indication that Spurs had anything but league thoughts on their mind. Glenn Hoddle's free kick being one of several early moments that encouraged the home supporters. But circumstances changed swiftly after 14 minutes with a goal from Everton which must interest Wolves. Gary Stanley's long free kick being flicked on by Mick Lyons and Asa Hartford with time and space to volley for the far corner. Bearing in mind Andy Gray's prowess in the air for Wolves and John Richards' alertness on the ground, it's a goal conceded which must worry Spurs manager Keith Birkinshaw. Even more disturbing is that for the rest of the half, Spurs' attacks lacked composure. Instead, they were in the main rushed and hopeful and dealt with fairly comfortably by an Everton side which certainly didn't look as if it had lost 6 games in a row. Glenn Hoddle is always capable of turning a game in one moment of brilliance, but at this stage even he was finding space difficult to come by, and as a result the few half chances for a shot that came Spurs' way didn't even bring a save out of Jim McDonough in the Everton goal. The confidence of Gordon Lee's team increased visibly, and while Spurs' passes went more and more adrift, Everton's play became controlled and measured. So it came as little surprise when the Merseysiders went into a 2-goal lead 15 minutes before half-time. Once again, there was a question mark against the centre of the Spurs defence, but let's not take away from Asa Hartford's perfectly paced pass, or indeed the finish by Imre Varadi. Looking at the goal again, it's even more obvious how square the Spurs defence was caught, leaving Alexic a difficult decision on whether to come all the way or stay. But despite being 2-0 down at half-time, the Spurs manager was clearly not as disheartened as the fans.
Well, it was a matter of playing the football that we want to play, but in a more direct fashion. I felt that we wanted to embellish the game a little bit in the first half. We'd not done badly football-wise for 20 minutes. But we'd wanted far too many touches in and around the box instead of having shots at goals. We've got to be more direct, show a little bit more enthusiasm. We had nothing to lose, and we said, well, let's push players forward. Let's make them think about us going towards their goals rather than us worrying about them going towards ours. And I think when you are in that sort of frame of mind and you are more positive, then things happen for you.
And it must be said straight away that Ricky Villa's appearance as substitute for the injured Gary Brooke helped things happen. Not immediately, mind you, because Everton might have wrapped the game up with the second half only 2 minutes old. Still looking the more certain and aggressive side, they gained possession and built on the right, where Trevor Ross took over. He looked in turn for Varadi in the box, and the striker's hooked shot ended up with Alexic at full stretch and happy to get a touch of any sort to the ball. It proved to be a turning point, because within a minute, instead of being 3 up, Everton found themselves with just a 1-goal advantage. At last, Spurs created a move of which they're very capable, involving in the early stages Hoddle, Villa and Ardiles. Everton were content to contain and just clear their lines, but from the ensuing throw-in they could find no answer to a simply built goal which had as devastating a finish as you could wish to see. Steve Perriman providing the cross, Garth Crooks the memorable volley. 2-1, and despite a little smile, Crooks eager to get on with the game. There wasn't time as far as he was concerned to admire a volley which came straight from the coaching books, a great body shape and an even better timing of the strike. From that moment, Spurs took over, mounting attack after attack, and more often than not involving their substitute Ricky Villa. His performance was outstanding, considering he'd been away from first-team football for 3 months with a knee injury. His fellow countryman Ardiles seemed to appreciate his presence as well, and between them the two were involved in several moves like this one which saw Glenn Hoddle with the final shot. Whatever Spurs' defensive deficiencies, it's touch play like this which will always give them a chance of scoring. 43 of Spurs' 82 goals this season, of course, have come from the Garth Crooks-Steve Archibald partnership. Here, Crooks is the provider and Archibald the finisher, but one thwarted this time by the Everton defence. It was to Everton's credit that they kept their organisation and composure for so long under such intense Spurs pressure. Attacks rained on them from all angles, with one of the best begun and finished by Hoddle. His pass finding Perryman overlapping on the right, and then from the cross linking with Ricky Villa, who lays on the shooting chance with a nice chest pass. Again, it's impossible to be critical of the Everton defence for a chance which owes everything to a mixture of South American skill at its best and, it's nice to say, an Englishman's as well. Indeed, Hoddle's game went from strength to strength, because shortly afterwards a lovely pass on the turn put Crooks away, only to find Jim McDonough's goalkeeping instinct at its sharpest. By now, though, the White Hart Lane supporters were beginning to worry, because despite their superiority, Spurs still trailed 2-1. Those fears were ended in the 72nd minute with another stylish move, Crooks holding with back to goal, Ardiles taking the ball into the box, and Tony Galvin applying the side foot finish. From having their confidence rocked by a very good Everton first half performance, Spurs rebuilt it in the best possible manner. And now they can go into next Saturday's semi-final against Wolves in good heart, and in the knowledge that even if they go behind, they have several players capable of retrieving the situation, including now Ricky Villa, whose second half performance as substitute has created a bit of a selection problem for Keith Birkinshaw, but one which the Spurs manager is more than happy to have.
Yes, he looked quite sharp, didn't he, to say he's been out for 3 months or so. And, of course, it gives another player that looks ready to step in next week.
What are your thoughts, Keith, about FA Cup semi-finals as games?
Well, I've only been concerned in one when I was up at Newcastle, and sometimes they're a little bit scrappy. One's always hopeful that the game's a good game and that the best team wins, but I think that it's a matter of gritting your teeth and saying, well, by hook or by crook, we're the ones that's going to get through. The pitches are not always helpful. If we've a pitch like we have here at Tottenham, then there's no problems, but sometimes the pitch is now a little bit bare and the ball's a little bit bobbly, so you've got to take the courage in your hands and say, let's have a go at it, let's give as much effort as possible, and hopefully the skill's going to pay off.